Carl, we need your wisdom at a time like this. We've been through another week of these really dangerous lies by the president with regards to mail-in ballots. The Postal Service is now national news. When's the last time that happened?
A long time. But the reason is that we have a tyrant president of the United States trying to act like a king to undermine the very electoral system, the most important element of our democracy, by impeding the Postal Service and throwing grave doubt among Americans about the efficacy and fairness of the election through lies and subterfuge. This is a real national crisis, and it requires a Republican Party that has enabled and gone along with this undermining of our electoral process to come to the fore and help save our democratic process at this pivotal moment.
What questions do you want the press to be asking in the weeks ahead?
I think the first thing is this ought to be, along with COVID, the story that we do not let go of for a moment, that we're on the air and online with it every moment, but particularly about our history. Because remember, the Postal Service was started by Benjamin Franklin. He was the first Postmaster General to be an element of our democracy in 1775. And now we have a president committed to shutting down, in essence, the ability of the post office to help Americans vote. This president of the United States is using the post office, crippling it, to make sure that votes are not counted that might go against him and against his Republican allies. This is an unprecedented crisis. We've never seen anything like this. So we need history in our journalism, and particularly over at Fox News, where there are real patriotic journalists, reporters. Forget about Sean Hannity, forget about Laura Ingraham. Fox News has an unusual obligation here to be patriotic and point out the history of the Postal Service, the history of our free elections, and how this president is undermining them.
Right. Once you start to realize that entire states conduct elections with mail-in ballots, once you realize the history of the Postal Service's incredible accomplishments, and how it's a backbone for the country, you understand the stakes of what's going on here. You mentioned Republican leaders as well, Carl. Isn't this about moral bankruptcy of the Republican Party? That there's just utter silence when these things happen?
Absolutely. And unless Mitch McConnell and other Republicans, important Republicans, step up, this will be the shame of the Republican Party for generations. Let's look at the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which ended the horrible Democratic Party segregationist hold on a so-called poll tax throughout the South to keep African Americans from voting. The Voting Rights Act was passed because of great Republicans, the party of Lincoln, not the party of segregation, not the party of exclusion. Today, the Republican Party is returning to the old Southern segregationist Democratic Party by allowing this president of the United States, a racist president with a racist appeal, to do this, undermine our electoral system through racist discrimination using the Postal Service of Ben Franklin to do it.
We do have a little bit of breaking news, by the way, about this Postal Service crisis. The House Oversight Committee just announced they're going to have a hearing on August 24th, so a little more than a week from now, and they're calling the Postmaster General in. We will see if the Postmaster General agrees to testify, but this is action by the Democrats to show they are taking this matter seriously. Carl, before I let you go, I can't help but notice you do sound pretty worried about the state of the country in a way that's not normally the way we talk about, on the eve of conventions. These are usually celebratory times for the country, for the political world. But this season's so different.
This is a national emergency. It's a national emergency caused by a despotic president who is unique in our history. We've never had a president of the United States who has tried to undermine our most basic institutions. We have never had a president of the United States who is in public, even admittedly, trying to hijack an election by excluding people from voting. This is unique, and that's why the press, particularly, every day must focus on this story with the history. The history is part of this story.